Hello everyone, the story I'm going to share today is unkindness caused him missing his chance to become immortal. During the spring and autumn period, a young man named Jiang Sheng lived in Wu County. When he was 20 years old, he left home and moved to the secluded foothills of Si Ming Mountain. He wished to master the skills of making immortal pails. Although he cultivated for 10 years, he did not make any progress. Later, he moved to Jin Men. One day, he met a beggar whose skin was very rough and dark. His clothes were so threadbare that he was almost naked. The beggar was so sick that he shivered and could not talk. Jiang Sheng felt pity for him, so he took off his robe and wrapped it around the beggar's body. Jiang Sheng asked him where he came from and said that he could try to help him. The beggar said, "My name is Jiang Sheng, and I came from Chu State. My home is in Nanchang. I had a few hundred acres of fertile farmland. Because of famine, I had to abandon my farm. Then the government took my land. I traveled to Jinchang about 10 years ago. Now I'm sick, and I cannot support myself. Thank you for your kindness." The two traveled to Jiang Sheng's place at the foot of Si Ming Mountain. Jiang Sheng allowed the beggar to stay with him, but the beggar was very lazy, did little to help, and usually slept most of the day. Jiang Sheng started to hate him and beat him. There was an ink stone on Jiang Sheng's desk. One day, the beggar suddenly told him, "You have been practicing Taoism for a long time. If you eat an immortal pill, your bones will change into gold. How can you not have a long life? Can you use a pill to change this inkstone into gold? If you can, then you are a true Taoist with immortal skills." Jiang Sheng knew that he had not cultivated well, so he was not able to do what the beggar asked. He felt very sad, but he used an excuse to refuse him. He said, "You're just a lowly servant. How could you know things about the celestial beings? If you talk nonsense again, I will beat you." The beggar smiled at him and walked away. About a month later, the beggar took out a very tiny spoon and said to Jiang Sheng, "Look, the immortal pills in this tiny spoon can change an inkstone into gold. If you give the inkstone to me, I will put immortal pills on top of it. Can you hand me the inkstone?" Jiang Sheng was given to making rash judgments. He thought that the beggar was talking nonsense again, so he scolded him and said, "I have been learning to refine the immortal pill for 10 years, and I still do not completely know the secret of it. You are just a servant. How do you dare to endlessly talk to me about this topic?" The beggar pretended to be afraid of him and did not answer. The next day, Jiang Sheng went out and walked along the mountains and rivers. When he returned that evening, he noticed that the beggar was dead. Jiang Sheng wrapped his body in a bamboo mat. He went outside to prepare a place to bury him. However, when he walked back home, he noticed that the beggar's body was gone. Only his cap and clothing were left. Jiang Sheng felt very strange and thought that perhaps the beggar was immortal. He immediately went to his room and found that his inkstone was also gone. The next day, he noticed that the light shining under the pot and said, "Could it be my immortal pills?" He immediately searched the ashes under the pot and found his inkstone, which had changed into purple gold, and it was shining brightly. He thought that it had been refined by the beggar's immortal pills. Jiang Sheng suddenly realized that the beggar was immortal. He hated himself for not realizing this sooner. For the rest of his life, Jiang Sheng felt ashamed and regretful for being so unkind. Even though he continued to cultivate, he was not successful. Years later, he died in Si Ming Mountain. This story reminds us that since ancient times, cultivation has been regarded with a great seriousness. Because the immortal saw that Jiang Sheng was determined to practice Daoism at such a young age, he disguised himself as a beggar to test him. However, although Jiang Sheng had a kind heart and a helped beggar, but he was too arrogant, looking down on the beggar while also struggling with low self-esteem. He even made excuses to cover his shortcomings. To truly practice cultivation, one must be humble and diligent, cultivating the heart from beginning to end. One must not be attached to anything, but instead let nature take its course, while continuing to be strict with oneself. If this path is followed, one will surely succeed. Thank you very much for listening to the story. More touching stories will be ready for you if just subscribe it. Thank you again.